From across the Rio Grande Valley, covering stories that matter. This is Action 4 News at 6, now in widescreen.
Good evening. We are live from the beautiful and newly renovated Weslaco ISD Performing Arts Center off 6th Street here in Weslaco. It's one of the premier performing arts centers in the valley. It is beautiful. Well, big birds, bayonets, and binders. Who knows what topics are going to come up tonight? Good evening. I'm Ryan Wolf. Thanks for joining this special edition of Action 4 News, a political forum with the candidates for U.S. Representative District 15. I'm joined by my co-moderators tonight, Sergio Sanchez with KURV Radio. Thanks for joining me. And Steve Taylor with the Rio Grande Guardian. Great to have you both here, our partners for tonight, as well as Act Now, which is helping to get the early vote out. Now, this broadcast will be seen live on valleycentral.com as well as on KURV.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. We are taking your tweets live tonight throughout the forum. Now, the candidates have all agreed to the rules beforehand, and for the audience members, we're asking them to remain silent until the end where they can show their appreciation for the candidates here tonight. Let's take a look at District 15 right now. Here's a look at the map. It covers the southern portion of Texas and includes Hidalgo, Jim Hogg, Brooks, Duval, Live Oak, Karnes, Wilson, and Guadalupe County. And now with the candidates, let's take a look for District 15. We have Republican Dale Briggerman, business owner from Seguin, and Democrat incumbent Congressman Ruben Hinojosa from Mercedes. Libertarian candidate Ronald Finch did not respond to our invitation to attend the forum. We're now going to turn it over to the questions. Sergio Sanchez with KURV Radio has the very first one. Sergio.
Thank you, Ryan. This first question to Mr. Dale Briggerman. Should the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, be left as is, reformed, or abolished?
That's a good question, Sergio. And first of all, let me thank everybody for having us down here. Channel 4 is doing an outstanding job having us here. It's a beautiful facility here in Weslaco, and I enjoy being here very much. As far as the Affordable Health Care Act, while I believe it has a few very good provisions to it, some small provisions, I believe that to really get to where we need to be with our health care, we need to abolish it completely. I'm afraid that the law as it is right now is just too cumbersome, too overbroad, too overburdensome for us to be able to go in there and try to retroactively retrofit the law. So my take on that would be let's go ahead and scrap it, and then let's go back to the drawing board. Let's take the good that is in the bill and bring it back up there, and let's reform this and make this a better law for everybody in the United States. I think we can do that if we're willing to work and meet into the middle of this, and so that would be my response to that.
Same question for Mr. Hinojosa, Congressman Hinojosa. Obamacare, left as is, reformed, or abolished?
Thank you, Sergio. I also am very pleased to be here in Weslaco and to be able to participate in this debate. The Affordable Health Care Act is one of the best things that has happened to our country. 8 presidents tried to get it passed, and it was too difficult, and this President Obama was able to successfully get it passed, and it has so many benefits. By the year 2014, when it is all fully implemented, we're going to see where women are going to be able to get their health care at the same price and premium as the men. It is the kind of a program that will not penalize anyone for existing medical conditions. There is no penalty if you happen to have one of those very expensive diseases as cancer and you hit $1 million cap. And at the before this bill was passed, it would cap it and there was no more health insurance available. With this, it will continue. This is one of the best things that has happened to us in an area like Texas, where we have so many people who are not insured. In Deep South Texas, we had 40% uninsured, and I believe that by the time that it is fully implemented, we will have about 10% uninsured. It is something that I am going to fight because it is Medicare that is so greatly needed in this area.
Thank you for that. Second question, I'll turn it over to Steve Taylor, Rio Grande Guardian.
And this, first of all, is for you, Congressman Hinojosa. How do you propose that Congress pays down our national debt?
Steve, that is a very good question. I can tell you that when I went to Congress 16 years ago, the national debt was $6 trillion. But never did I think that we would be fighting two wars, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan, where we were spending as much as $12 to $15 billion a month. Never did I believe that this wars would go 10 years, which is the longest in our nation's history, and that we were going to have to neglect the area in the United States instead of spending it on wars. Furthermore, we went into a financial crisis like the one that we had back in the time of President Roosevelt, which is the deepest depression that we had ever had. All of those combined threw us into a financial crisis that has caused us to raise the national debt in ways that we had never expected before. But I am going to work, and I am going to be voting so that we will reduce our expenditures and have a balanced way of doing it by increasing taxes on that 2% that in many cases are using all sorts of incentives and that they pay very, very little. I believe it can be done, and I will continue to fight so that our programs will be taking care of the people that are benefiting, and that would be all the working class.
And Mr. Brueggemann?
Well, my path is a lot different than the Congressman's path regarding our deficit. First and foremost, we haven't had a budget since 2009 as far as the federal budget. It would seem like to me that as families, as business people, everybody generally works off of a budget, yet our federal government doesn't seem to have one and doesn't seem to think it's one is necessary. Rather, it uses what they call continuing resolutions, which just simply means is there's nothing there to keep it in rein or to keep the spending down. I certainly believe that we need a balanced budget amendment. 49 states in the country has a balanced budget amendment. We certainly need one in the federal government to rein this in. Beyond that, I think we have to start looking at all of the departments and agencies as far as their budgets and figure out what we can do to hold down spending and to start bringing back some of the money back into the Treasury where we can start working on the deficits. Until we start getting the rein and getting a handle on what we're spending and doing things like everybody else out here has to do, the federal government is going to just continue to spend. We don't need any more cylinders. We don't need any more stimulus programs. We don't need those kind of things. Government needs to get under wraps and needs to do a better job in their spending and their budget approach. And if I go to Washington, I'll certainly work on that immediately. And that would be something that I think we need to start on immediately. Thank you.
All right, the next round of questions is part of our quick fire section. Each candidate will have 45 seconds to respond. Sergio, the question is from you.
If elected, what is your number one goal, Congressman Hinojosa?
My number one goal is to improve the economy and create jobs in the way that we have done that during the 16 years that I've been in Congress. There's no question in my mind that we can do it. I will close that gap, which in 1997 was 22% unemployment, and within 10 years I was able to help by bringing a coalition of community leaders and be able to drop that unemployment rate to 6%. It can be done by investing in education, by investing in healthcare, by investing in the infrastructure that we are so greatly needing in all of Texas. Those are the things that we will do, and we will reduce the unemployment.
Mr. Brueggemann.
I do believe that we need to bring jobs to the Rio Grande Valley, and we need to do it now. Right now, we have a current 11.7% unemployment rate down here in the valley, and we need to work on that immediately. You're not going to be able to do that, though, by bringing a few jobs in, like government sector jobs or any of that kind of stuff. We need private enterprise down here, private industry. We need to build up our manufacturing base, our IT type of things, and I can tell you right now, I have a plan to do it, and if that means calling every Fortune 500 company to come down here and take a look at us in the Rio Grande Valley, then so be it. I will do that. I will bring them down here to work with our economic development people, and let's bring jobs here, and let's get it done, and let's get it done now.
Thank you for that. Another quick fire question. This one's 45 seconds, going to Steve Taylor.
And this question, first of all, goes to you, Mr. Brueggemann. Do you support or oppose gay marriage?
I oppose it but let me clarify that. Actually, in my view, it's really none of our business. I believe that marriage is between two people. I don't see where that really has anything to do with government as far as I'm concerned. Personally, I don't believe in it. I believe in a man, one woman, but I don't see where it's really any of the government's business to be involved in somebody's personal business like that.
And Congressman Hinojosa?
I believe in equal treatment of all individuals as guaranteed by the Constitution. I support ensuring that all couples have the same rights and responsibilities afforded to any married couple in our country.
Thank you for that. General questions again. This one is 1:30 for response time, starting with Congressman Hinojosa. Question to you is, should the incoming president continue with deferred action? Why or why not in response to the DREAM Act?
Yes, I believe that immigration reform is something that is badly needed, and the Senate just was not willing to let us take at least one portion of the Immigration Reform Act, which is the DREAM Act. We passed it in the House of Representatives by a substantial margin, bipartisan-like, and the Senate requires a 60 vote out of 100, which is the supermajority, and we were short 5. So I believe that President Obama is doing wonderfully in terms of introducing it and letting us debate it, but the House of Representatives leadership, which is controlled by the Republicans, have not allowed it to come back into the House for consideration. But I will keep fighting for immigration reform and that it will include the DREAM Act.
Congressman, thank you for that. Dale Briggerman, same question to you.
As far as immigration is concerned, I think it is too broad, too cumbersome. It needs to be streamlined. It needs to be made efficient. Right now, if you try to become a citizen in this country and you look at the forms and all that's necessary to become that, you almost have to have a lawyer sitting next to you. That is ridiculous. We need to streamline it. We need to bring it into check, and we need to put this process on the right path. Beyond that, I think we need a very good guest worker program. We are in dire need of a guest worker program that is verifiable and works. I really, truly believe if we had a good guest worker program, we could eliminate a lot of our immigration problems. And so I'm all for, let's get with the different companies out here that do database work or something like that, and let's put this plan into action, and let's get this guest worker program, and let's go ahead and streamline the immigration situation. As far as the DREAM Act, I understand the DREAM Act. I don't have a problem with the DREAM Act, except I believe it's a little overbroad. I would like to see it a little more refined to individual specifics as far as to the individual person that's trying to come in under the DREAM Act. If they can get to that point with it as far as how the bill is written, I will very much go across the aisle to my Republican comrades and tell them, look, this is the right thing to do. We need to get this done. I'm certainly for it. I live in South Texas. I know what we need. I believe it's the right thing.
Thank you for that. I also want to thank again our viewers watching on Action 4 News, listening in on valleycentral.com and or KURV Radio. We're asking people to tweet in tonight at KGBT, #RGVVote. Next question right now, Sergio Sanchez.
Gentlemen, the cuts in HUD and USDA is going to mean less money available for affordable home grants. Is this something that you support refunding? Why or why not? The question to Mr. Bruggeman.
I will tell you that what I would like to keep those things into place as much as possible, but I think what we need to do is we need to work on the waste, the fraud, and the abuse that are in the programs. There's so many government programs with so much of the so much waste and all the things that go on in that, and so much money is wasted where it could be used where it needs to be used. I think we need to work on those things first. We seem to be remiss about streamlining these programs and getting them working to where they need to work, but doing it on in a way that makes sense, and that means by making sure that the money is not wasted or is frittered away. Instead, let's put the money in the places where it needs to be done, and I believe we can get it done, but we need to make them more efficient. We need to make them work for our people instead of the waste that goes along in the bureaucracy that seems to waste all those monies that are involved. We can do these programs, but we need to put a more business-like approach to it, and I would be willing to do that if I was in Washington.
Federal dollars for affordable housing, Congressman Hinojosa, do you support the refunding of that? Why or why not?
Well, let me add to the answer and response that my opponent gave on housing. That is something very, very important to rural America, and I became the chairman of the Rural Housing Caucus, made up of about 67 members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. And there is not waste. What has happened is that under the Bush administration, they made such big cuts that we had to really fight to be able to get $30 million into the House Action Committee, that the Housing Assistance Committee that was needing this kind of help. And what we need is to pay attention to what the Paul Ryan bill does, which almost zeroes it out, and that there will not be the money necessary to help rural housing. As far as the attack that many of those in rural America have had, where they're trying to close down or take over their homes and foreclose on them, is that we do not have the assistance to rural America that we had in the Bill Clinton administration. And the reason for it is that the budget cuts have been drastic, draconian, and we need to really pay attention to rural America because it needs our help. And I know that I can do it because I have been able to get some representatives on the other side of the aisle to go with us on the caucus and to be able to respond to the assistance that they need so that they don't lose their homes to mortgage foreclosure.
Thank you for that. Time expired right there. We have a quick fire question right now, 45 seconds to respond. First one from Steve Taylor.
Yes, and this one goes to you first, Congressman Hinojosa. Can you work with members of the other political party, and how important is compromise in Washington?
Very important. Under Bill Clinton, we were in the minority in the House of Representatives, and we found ways in which we could sit down with members of the other side of the aisle and work out agreements. And I saw it happen during the 10 years that I was in the minority. Under Bush, he said that we were going to increase it, but it actually separated us even much more. And especially at this time, I do not see the Tea Party patriots willing to compromise. It's their way or no way. And I just cannot be able to work with them like that because there is no compromise. It can be done. In answer to your question, it should be done, and I'm willing to compromise because I'm a businessman who knew how those things were done.
Your time is up. And for you, Mr. Brueggemann, the same question. Can you work with members of the other political party, in this case the Democrats? How important is compromise?
Compromise is essential for getting anything done in Washington. Unfortunately, we have too many politicians up there. You have too many on one side or the other, and they continuously forget that they are the employees, not the employer. We need to remind them that they are up there to do the people's work, to do the job that we sent them there for. And you do that by changing whoever's up there is not doing that. Absolutely. I believe that we are all Americans first, and we need to look at it that way. And regardless if we're Republicans or Democrats, we both have good ideas, we both have good solutions, but we need to find it in the middle. I will do that. You send me there, and I'll work with it, and we'll get it done.
Thank you for that. We have another quick fire question. This one again, 45 seconds, and it's going to come from Sergio.
Well, with $1.5 trillion annually in federal deficits and $16 trillion in an overall federal debt, there's a lot of talk about cutting federal spending. Are there any departments or programs that you would vote to abolish, Mr. Brueggemann?
Let me go, before we go that way, let's look at what the Congressional Budget Office did. They did a report not too long ago that if you read the report, it was about 300 pages long. They found where, without cutting any agency or department, but just taking the redundancy, the duplicative type of things that all these agencies seem to overlap with, they could reduce $400 billion almost immediately. Past that, I believe that we need to look at each and every one's budget in each agency, each department, and yes, we can work on those budgets. I don't necessarily believe we have to cut anything, but we certainly need to get things back in line and try to streamline the various agencies.
Congressman Hinojosa, anything you would cut?
Let me say that it is interesting to hear my opponent talk about not cutting anything, and yet Paul Ryan makes $4 trillion worth of cuts by eliminating half of the jobs in USDA that we were just talking about a few moments ago. They don't allow that there be any cuts to the Department of Defense, which grew from $300 billion to $680 billion in the short time that I've been in Congress, 16 years. I say to you that we did not intend to be at war for 10 years, and that is what has caused us to neglect the improvements to our country, like roads and bridges and airports, and invest in education, invest in work training, which is greatly necessary to improve the economy and produce jobs.
Thank you. We have another quick-fire question, 45 seconds. This one dealing with the Veterans Hospital. Steve Taylor, Rio Grande Guardian, will have the question.
Yes, and this question is for you first, Congressman Hinojosa. Why has it taken us so long to get a Veterans Hospital, and when is it going to come?
Well, a great question, Steve. It goes back 50 years ago when Lloyd Benson was the congressman. It goes back to the ones that followed him, and that when I started back 16 years ago, it was just talk and rhetoric and constant reasons why the Congress would not appropriate the money. Since I've been there, I put together a coalition of members of Congress, and we were able to get $40 million for the new building that has been built in Harlingen a year ago. All it lacks is now an emergency room and 30 beds, and we can change the name from South Texas Veterans Medical Center to one that will say South Texas Veterans Hospital. And I'm working on that legislation now, and I hope to get it done as soon as we start the next session.
Thank you, Congressman. And Mr. Brueggemann, why has it taken so long for us to get a Veterans Hospital, and when is it going to arrive?
I think that's pretty obvious. We just haven't hollered loud enough to get it done. You have a large contingent of veterans down here in the Valley. There's no question in my mind that they're not getting the services and the different facilities that they need. You know, sometimes you just got to go and get in front of people's faces. In this case, the Veterans Administration, you tell them, look, this is what we need. We need to get this done, and you have to just keep going back to them until you finally get it done. I understand about putting together the coalition of various representatives up there to get it done, but sometimes you just got to make certain things priorities, and you just got to get in their face and do it.
Thank you so much. That concludes the question portion of this political forum. We're now going to have closing statements from each of the candidates. You'll have 45 seconds for this, and we'll begin with Dale Brueggemann first. Dale?
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. I've been coming to the Rio Grande Valley now every week for some time. This is a wonderful place. You have wonderful people, good people here, solid people. We just need to go a different direction in the Rio Grande Valley. We need jobs. We need to work with our veterans more. We need to give people hope. What I see down here is they need accessibility from their congressmen. I hear that they don't have that. I can assure you, if I'm put in Washington, if you send me there, I will be accessible, and I will hear you, and I will listen to you, and I will work for you, and I will go to the wall for you. I want you to know we're going to bring jobs down here. We're going to do things to make this the greatest part of the state that it should be, and it should be noted for that, and we certainly will get that done. Thank you.
Dale Brueggemann, thank you so much. Congressman Hinojosa, your turn.
Thank you. I'm Ruben Hinojosa, and I am privileged to be the representative in Washington for the 15th Congressional District. In the 16 years that I've been there, I've been able to reduce the unemployment rate. We have been able to increase the federal investment from $3 billion to $9 billion in just 10 years. We are doing everything we can to improve education by increasing the Pell Grant from $3,500 to $5,550, making direct government loans, making accessibility and affordability to higher education a reality. We are making great progress. We have closed the gap on unemployment. We have increased our population here by 44%, and yet we can say we have improved the quality of life for everyone here in South Texas.
Congressman Ruben Hinojosa, thank you so much. Dale Brueggemann, thank you so much for being part of this. We thank our audience at home watching on Action 4 News, also valleycentral.com, or listening to KURV Radio. As part of our campaign 2012, expect more coverage. We want to let you know we have another political forum coming right after this. It starts in about 5 minutes, featuring U.S. Representative District 34 candidates. We'll be right here from the Weslaco ISD Performing Arts Center, a beautiful facility here off 6th Street. And a quick reminder that on Thursday, October 25th, we have the candidates from State Representative District 41. They're going to be meeting at the forum at the Weslaco Business Visitors and Events Center from 5 to 5:30. And then we're going to have the candidates from 6 to 6:30 from State Representative District 39. We'll meet at the same location, so we have a busy schedule ahead. I also want to thank Steve Taylor, Rio Grande Guardian. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ryan.
And also Sergio Sanchez, KURV Radio 710 AM. Thank you for being here.
Thank you much, Ryan.
Any final remarks, Steve?
I think this has been a very spirited debate. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Sergio?
Oh, for the audience, stick around, meet the candidates.
Yeah, that's right. And we also want to thank Act Now outside, helping get people out for early voting, which continues through November 2nd. Election Day, can you believe it? 2 weeks away, the big day. So we want to remind people, get out there, early vote. Act Now can help you find the precincts if you need it. And valleycentral.com, we have candidates online, the ones that couldn't make it out or the ones we don't have a debate for, online. Check it out, valleycentral.com. Get to meet the candidates in a more intimate setting. They had 2 minutes to share with you on why they should be elected. So we're going to ask you one more time to stick around. We have another spirited political forum coming up right after this. Again, our congrats and our thanks to Congressman Rubeni Dahosa, also Dale Brigham. Thank you so much for District 15. Big race. And thanks for being part of this. For all of us here at Action 4 News, KURV Radio, and Rio Grande Guardian, have a great night. We'll see you in a few minutes. Bye-bye.
One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
from across the Rio Grande Valley, covering stories that matter. This is Action 4 News at 6, now in widescreen.
We are live from the beautiful and newly renovated Weslaco ISD Performing Arts Center off 6th Street in Weslaco, one of the premier performing arts centers in the Rio Grande Valley. This place is beautiful. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this special political coverage here on Action 4 News. I'm Ryan Wolf. As we get set, the candidates for District 34, U.S. Representative District 34 are here. My co-moderators are joining me as well. Steve Taylor, Rio Grande Guardian, Sergio Sanchez, KURV Radio, 710 AM, and our partners tonight as well, ACT Now, helping to get the vote out. Early voting continues through November 2nd, Election Day, 2 weeks away. By the way, the broadcast also being heard on KURV Radio and valleycentral.com, and of course we welcome our Action 4 News viewers watching right now. The candidates have all agreed to the format and to the rules ahead of time, and our audience knows to hold their applause until the end of the political forum. We have a spirited debate underway, 30 minutes. Let's get started right now. First, take a look at the map. District 34, the congressional seat includes Cameron, Willacy up to DeWitt County, as well as portions of Hidalgo, San Patricio, and Gonzales counties. Now let's meet the candidates for District 34. Republican Jessica Puente-Bradshaw and Democrat Filomon Vela. We welcome them both. Thank you so much for being here. Questions? 1 minute and 30 for the response. It starts with Sergio Sanchez with KURV Radio.
And we begin this question for Ms. Jessica Puente-Bradshaw. What role should the federal government play in job creation in South Texas?
First of all, thank you for having us. I am very grateful to be here because this is an opportunity for the viewers to get an understanding of where the candidates stand. As far as to what role the government plays in creating a thriving economy, the Congress is not here to bring jobs. It's not here to carry them, put them on our lap. Congress is supposed to legislate, either create legislation or remove it. And by that it includes a tax legislation. Are we increasing taxes too much? Should we reduce them? What are we going to do to make sure that we are helping the entrepreneur, the working family, our college students who are getting ready to go into a workforce? The role of the government is to make sure that it gets out of the way of the private citizen so that the private citizen can keep more of his hard-earned money, therefore invested in their own future, in their businesses, and in whatever it is that they want to do. As a congresswoman, I pledge to do that. I pledge to make sure that those that need help get it, eliminate fraud, and really provide those opportunities to a community. Small businesses, large businesses, they want the opportunities, and really that's what the government is here to do.
Same question to Mr. Filomon Vela. What role should the federal government play in job creation in South Texas?
Our president has proposed what is known as the American Jobs Act, and has some very important provisions. Primarily, it promotes tax cuts for small businesses. For example, there is a provision which would cut the payroll tax in half to 3.1% for employers on the first $5 million in wages, and it provides broad tax relief to all businesses, but targeting it to the 98% of firms with wages below this level. It also extends 100% expensing into 2012. The president is exposed, this was proposed back in 2011 but did not pass. The president is proposing to extend 100% expensing, the largest temporary investment incentive in history, allowing all firms, large and small, to take immediate deduction on investments in new plants and equipment. The president's plan also includes administrative, regulatory, and legislative measures to help small firms start and expand. Not only that, he has a plan that puts workers back to work. He's proposing a returning heroes tax credit of up to $5,600 for hiring unemployed vets. The president has proposed to invest $35 billion to prevent layoffs of up to 280,000 teachers while supporting the hiring of tens of thousands more and keeping cops and firefighters on the job. These are the kinds of proposals that we see in the President's Jobs Act, and it's been, the Republican Party has fought against these, and what I think is going forward for the next 4 years, these are the kinds of things that we need to push forward, and these are the kinds of things that will keep our economy growing.
Thank you, Mr. Vela.
Thank you. Time expired there. Next question goes to Steve Taylor. Again, this will be 1 minute and 30 for the response.
And this question, first of all, goes back to you, Mr. Vela. International trade is the lifeblood of the border region. What is your plan to speed up goods so that at our ports of entry? What would you do to speed up the flow of goods at our ports of entry?
Congressman Hinojosa, for the last 2 years, has been a big proponent of commercializing both the Dana Bridge and the Anzalua Bridge. I will work with Congressman Hinojosa and Congressman Cuellar to bring the commercialization of those two bridges to fruition so that we can free up the commercial traffic here on the border. In Cameron County, we have over 2,000 workers that live in Brownsville or somewhere in Cameron County and cross over. We need to continue to protect free trade and help promote the maquiladora industries that we have both all along the border from Matamoros to Rio Bravo to Reynosa, and those are the kinds of things that the people of this district can rely on me to help continue to fight for.
And the same question for you, Ms. Puente-Bradshaw. International trade is the lifeblood of the border region. What is your plan to speed up the goods coming across our ports of entry?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we have the human power necessary to make sure that goods that are coming are legal goods, that there is no smuggling going on, and that is going to happen when we have the power behind those customs agents, U.S. Department of Agriculture as well. And so that has to be there because we want to make sure that we maintain and we keep our country safe. On the other hand, we want to make sure that we develop the Port of Brownsville. By developing it, we will bring private industry. They will invest in our area. That will create taxpayer revenue so that we can grow economically, and therefore with those tax funds be able to improve the travel back and forth, and we can therefore hire locally and not depend so much on the federal government to do that for us. So definitely development of the port, having the agents necessary so that we make sure that we stay a safe country, and all of those, and those things combined will attract outside businesses to invest in our area, which will create a thriving economy.
Thank you for that. We're going to begin the quick-fire portion of our political forum. Candidates will have 45 seconds to respond. Sergio will send a question to you.
And this question to Mr. Filemon Vela. Do you support southbound inspections to stop the illegal flow of guns and cash from reaching the cartels?
Well, I think we had some problems in the past with the Fast and Furious program, and the people in the federal government who were responsible for the weapons that showed up at the scenes of the murders of our 2 Border Patrol agents have been brought to justice, and I think I would continue to support any efforts to assure that would never happen again.
Ms. Jessica Puente-Bradshaw, do you support southbound inspections to stop the illegal flow of guns and cash from reaching the drug cartels?
I absolutely do support it, but I also support the idea that we have to make sure that we allow our agents to do their job. Currently, they are limited as to who and how much that they can actually look into as far as the traveling down of these weapons and money. We also need to keep in mind that this Fast and Furious debacle is something that we as taxpayers paid for through a clause or a section of the first stimulus package. When we have Congress that sleeps when they are voting yes or no on these bills, we are allowing ourselves as taxpayers to encourage this type of behavior, and you need a congressperson who is going to be reading every bill so that this doesn't happen again.
Thank you for that. All right, this next question is also a quick-fire question, 45 seconds for the candidates' response. Steve, it's yours to go.
Yes, and this question first goes to you, Ms. Puente-Bradshaw. Is healthcare a right or a privilege?
Healthcare is a right of every individual. We must never, the difference here being that every individual deserves to see a doctor and be treated. No one should be turned away. However, we all as Americans have to work, and we have to make sure that whatever it is that is available there for us, that we are willing to participate in one way or another to, one, maybe pay into it so that others can also benefit, and therefore the cost of healthcare and health insurance does not skyrocket, which is what has been happening thus far, creating this inequality within those that have and those that have not. We all have to work hard to make sure that those rights and privileges are there for us to use.
Thank you, Ms. Puente-Bradshaw. And the same question to you, Mr. Vella. Is health care a right or a privilege?
Steve, I think that to the heart of your question is the Affordable Care Act. And there have been some provisions in the Affordable Care Act that have already been implemented that have provided a great benefit to the people in this country. For example, as of August 1st, the free preventative care for women under the insurance plans. As of August 1st, insurance companies were required to spend at least 80% to 85% of their customer premiums on direct medical costs. Since September 2010, insurers have been barred from levying out-of-pocket costs on patients getting mammograms and colonoscopies. So the Affordable Care Act has been very productive in the last 2 years. Now, we need to make sure that going forward, to the extent current Medicaid and Medicare beneficiaries aren't able to receive care, that we give support to our medical providers.
Thank you for that. We have another quick-fire question. Candidates will have 45 seconds to respond. And the question is going to begin with you, Mr. Philemon Vella. Should the Corporation for Public Broadcasting continue to receive a federal subsidy?
I am long a proponent of the public broadcasting service. Years ago, I was very involved in the publication of the Dr. Hector P. Garcia story. He's the founder of the GI Forum. I think that we need to continue to promote public broadcasting, and as a congressman, I would do everything that I could to make sure that the kinds of programs that public broadcasting has brought to the American public continue.
Thank you for that. Same question, Jessica Puente-Bradshaw?
45 seconds.
45 seconds, quick fire.
Public Broadcasting Service, that's PBS. That's, I guess, what everybody's talking about, big bird and whatnot. You know, I think that right now taxpayers are worried about their financial future, their economic future, and their jobs. And what they're seeing is they're seeing a government that is spending a lot of money on a lot of things that maybe at the end of the day they feel that they don't necessarily need. What I propose is, you know what, if there is some good broadcasting that PBS potentially would have, well, why don't we start investing within our own communities and our own local channels, maybe public access. Maybe there are private business owners out there, individuals who say, you know what, I'd like to have a public access channel so that I, or my son, or my daughter, or my business can actually televise on it. I think that we need to start shifting this weight on the taxpayer to fund the federal government. Let's start doing it ourselves.
Thank you for that. I had a feeling before the debate began, Big Bird, binders, or bayonets was going to make its way into this political forum. I want to thank our listeners on KURV Radio, also valleycentral.com, where we're streaming live right now, and of course our viewers on Action 4 News as you continue to watch this political forum here, and continue to remind everybody we want you to tweet, we want you to get involved. If you have a comment or a question for the candidates, send it to @KGBT or #RGVVote. All right, let's continue with the questions. This next one's going to go for Mr. Philemon Vella. Minute and 30 to respond to the question. How do you propose to make Social Security and Medicare affordable for the federal government?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that we don't let Wall Street take over Medicare and Social Security. I support the President's efforts to continue to provide Medicare and Social Security benefits to seniors at the time they were promised those benefits and for the amounts that they were promised those benefits.
Jessica Puente-Bradshaw, same question to you.
Go ahead and repeat the question.
Sure will.
Please.
How do you propose to make Social Security and Medicare more affordable for the federal government?
We always talk about affordability, and what we cannot forget is the reason why something becomes unaffordable is because we are paying and putting money into fraud or waste or overlap of services. So what the federal government needs to do is it needs to look very closely at its books and decide and start investigating, and whomever is caught doing Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare fraud needs to be gone after. That is taxpayers' money that is being thrown away. And if we could just eliminate that, we would recover a little bit, I believe it's over 30% of that cost. So we have to go after the fraud and the waste, first and foremost.
Thank you so much. Our next question from KURV's Sergio Sanchez.
It's an immigration-based question. Should comprehensive immigration reform include a measure that provides a pathway to citizenship for those who came into the country illegally or who overstayed their visa? And that question for you, Ms. Jessica Puente-Bradshaw.
I think that this question is particularly important in our area because a lot of our economy and a lot of our population, in one way or another, depends on individuals who have been here perhaps illegally for decades. Why for decades? Because there is a bogged down in the immigration process. And so when that happens, and it creates a situation where people become illegal, then we have to look closely at that, the economic benefit and the social benefit that an individual brings to at the table to this area, for example, and say, okay, what kind of penalties maybe can we impose, but at the same time, what process can we implement so that they can go through this process quickly? It's that bogged down in the bureaucracy that has created a lot of frustration, and that in a way or another forces people to come here illegally. I think that if we all lived in Mexico and we were getting shot at by cartels, we'd all try to run to the safest place possible. So we have to have a comprehensive immigration plan, and I am the Congresswoman who is willing to put that on the table, whether it be as a Latino or as a Republican, to start bringing solutions to the area.
Same question to Mr. Filemon Vela, comprehensive immigration reform, pathway for illegal immigrants, yes or no?
Yes, the first thing I would do is turn President Obama's deferred action on the DREAM Act into law. And secondly, we have to remember that during President Bush's presidency, he understood the significance of giving a pathway to citizenship to the many people from abroad that were in this country. And he was fought hard by members of his own party. By the same token, it's been 4 years and we still have had no comprehensive immigration reform. I think that it is urgent, and I think that Republicans and Democrats alike have an interest in making sure that that we give a comprehensive pathway to citizenship to the folks that have been here.
Thank you for that. We're going to continue with you again, Mr. Filemon Vela. Question for you. The question for you is, should the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare be left as it is, reformed, or abolished?
Well, I referred to several provisions in the Health Care Act that have had a tremendous benefit to the citizens of this country during the last 2 years. I would never vote to repeal the Health Care Act. However, I think we have to make sure that to the extent it is difficult for our medical providers to care for current Medicaid and Medicare beneficiaries, that we do what we need to reform the Health Care Act. So what it boils down to is we're going to have to go back and probably tweak some provisions of the Health Care Act so it doesn't affect those beneficiaries.
Thank you for that. Same question, Jessica Puente-Bradshaw.
I am for repealing it or abolishing it. A lot of people do not realize, and I've actually read the health care bill, many people do not realize how intrusive this bill will become. And back in September, just recently, the Washington Times reported that the CBO declared that the health care bill cost was going to increase by 50%. In other words, we passed a bill that we had not read, that we had to pass to know what was in it, and now we're finding out that it's going to cost 50% more than what initially was thought. And so what this tells us is we weren't ready for that. We passed something quickly, didn't look at it. Now, are there certain provisions in the health care bill that are beneficial? Absolutely. And we can look at those individually and bring them to the table and then pass them on an individual basis. But when you're passing a bill that is 2,700 pages long, which cannot be read in 24 hours, it takes you almost 2 months to read through it, and includes an increase of many federal government agencies, including the IRS, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. It creates departments with endless budgets that have not even been created. I think people should really be afraid of it. They are enforcing a huge government on us, and all with the excuse that somehow all of us are going to get better health care because of it.
Thank you for that. Next question is a quick-fire question, 45 seconds, and it comes from one of our viewers on Action 4 News. Again, we encourage you to tweet your questions to @KGBT. Let's turn it over to Steve Taylor with the Rio Grande Guardian.
Yes, and this question, first of all, is for you, Ms. Puente-Bradshaw. Do you support or oppose gay marriage?
I oppose the changing of the term of marriage. It's a Christian definition. Marriage, that term, is between one man and one woman. However, if individuals want to have contracts, whether it be a marriage contract, home buying, insurance, and through the acceptance of state law, are allowed to have that, therefore, to go ahead. It's a contract like any other, much like individuals who are both men and women who have common law marriage. I believe that they deserve that right. However, I do not 100% do not agree with changing the term and giving it a legal definition that now marriage is between a man-woman, man-man, and a woman-woman.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Vella, the same question to you. Do you support or oppose gay marriage?
I believe that I believe in the traditional notion of marriage as being between a man and a woman. But I do not think that we should, or anyone or any company should discriminate against somebody on the basis of their sexual preference.
Same question for you. We're going to stay with you, Mr. Filemon Vella, for this next question. And it is another quick-fire question, 45 seconds, and we're going to turn it over to Sergio.
Well, if elected, Mr. Vela, what is your number one goal?
Well, we need to bring jobs, we need to bring the level of unemployment in this country back to historically low levels. So I would say that bringing jobs back to this national economy, bringing jobs to South Texas, specifically by supporting SpaceX, bringing a medical school down to South Texas, and also by widening and deepening the channel at the Port of Brownsville. By doing those things, we'll create the kind of jobs that will help us reduce our levels of unemployment at 11% down to acceptable levels.
And the same question to Ms. Jessica Puente-Bradshaw. If elected, what would be your number one goal?
My number one goal would be to reduce the size of government. It is the fact that we are witnessing as Americans a ballooning in the size of government, a ballooning in the size of these federal departments that is worrying a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, and just the general public. Why? Because a larger government means higher taxes. Someone's got to pay for this government. Someone's got to pay the salaries of these government employees. And we have overextended, we have allowed it to grow so much to the point that we're worried that we're not going to be able to afford our own private life and then also support a growing federal government. So the first job is to go in there, start reducing the size of some of these departments so that therefore our current level of spending will be reduced and we can keep more of our tax money.
Jessica Puente-Bradshaw, this question's for you. It's a quick-fire question from one of our Action 4 News viewers. We appreciate you participating today. The question is, what do you feel is one weakness in your opponent?
Well, I've joked about it, but you can take it how you want. You know, the fact that my opponent is an attorney, and what we have right now is we have way too many attorneys in Washington writing bills that most of us cannot even begin to understand. And what we need now is real people in Congress who are ready to start passing bills, repealing bills, legislating in a way that the American taxpayer can understand, because at the end of the day, it is us who are paying for this legislation. And so I would say that's one of the big ones.
Same question to you, sir.
Well, I'm proud of being a lawyer, and I'm proud of my colleagues. There's always a few bad apples, of course, but by and large, the legal profession is an honorable profession. Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer, and he was a great president, and I think as a lawyer that I can do a great job as well. In terms of my opponent's weaknesses, I really don't have anything to say negative about my opponent. I think that this country is based on freedom of speech and free beliefs. I have my beliefs, my opponent has her beliefs, and the people have to decide which one of this they agree with. But I respect my opponent for taking the time and effort to run for office, and I look forward to representing her. By the same token, if she happens to win this election, I look forward to being represented by her as well.
Thank you so much for that. We now have time for some closing remarks from both of the candidates. We'll start with Jessica Puente-Bradshaw. You'll have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate this opportunity. This is a very big district. It is 11 counties, and I know that, like my opponent, we have tried so hard to get in front of the voters. You know, if you want someone, as a viewer, if you want somebody who is willing to represent you, who is willing to take time out of their day, every day, to read these bills, to get the information out, elect me. I have been doing this because as a private citizen, it was important to me. It's important for the future of my children, and I know the future of your children out there as well. There is no intent here except to be a good representative, to listen to all sides, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent. We all have to start believing in this America, and I'm here to represent the people, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Philemon Vela, your turn.
I think to conclude in 1 minute, I would address two things. One, at the Port of Brownsville, there are over 3,000 people working every day. For the businesses at the Port of Brownsville to be able to continue to employ that number of people, for the Port of Brownsville to be able to bring in more companies to employ even more people, it's going to require deepening and widening the port, and that's going to cost over $250 million, and that will only happen with federal funding. Secondly, I had the great privilege yesterday of being with University of Texas Brownsville students at the Willacy County Navigation District in Port Mansfield. And what those kids are doing in terms of astrophysics study is just a tremendous thing. And I look forward to representing this district. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that children like that continue to have the same benefits that I had growing up, and I'll dedicate my life to that.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the students out there appreciate that shout out tonight. Let's give a round of applause to the candidates for District 34 U.S. Representative. They did a great job. Jessica Puente-Bradshaw, Mr. Philemon Vela, thank you so much for that. As part of our campaign 2012, expect more coverage. We want to remind you about our next political forum live on Action 4 News and on KURV Radio, as well as streaming on valleycentral.com. State representatives from District 41, the candidates will meet at the forum at the Weslaco Business Visitors and Event Center. That's from 5 to 5:30. Then from 6 to 6:30, we'll be at that same location, and we're going to feature the candidates from State Representative District 39. We're looking for another spirited discussion. And remember, your vote counts, so be sure to get out for early voting. You can check out early voting locations from actnow.org, also on valleycentral.com. And we remind you, early voting runs through November 2nd, and the big election day, 2 weeks from tonight. Can you believe it? Election Day. So let your voice be heard. Polling locations, once again, you can find it on valleycentral.com. I want to thank our co-moderators tonight, Steve Taylor, Rio Grande Guardian. Any final thoughts, sir?
I think it's been a very absorbing debate. The candidates have given some very detailed answers, and I think the voters have got very clear choices here.
And Mr. Sergio Sanchez.
Well, the positions are very clear, and you can see where we have divergent opinions on different issues. As is tradition in South Texas, vote early and vote often, is what I have to say.
Get out and vote, right? Bottom line. We do appreciate everybody watching. Again, for the candidates who didn't get a chance to see, head to valleycentral.com. We have candidate profiles online. 2 minutes, intimate setting, get to know the candidates, some behind-the-scenes stuff as well. Again, we have that online. We're asking you also to tweet your questions for the next upcoming political forum at KGBT, also KURV and the Rio Grande Guardian on Twitter. We'll get our questions together. We're working hard to get the answers you're looking for as we get ready for Election Day. So for all of us here at Action 4 News, KURV Radio and the Rio Grande Guardian, I'm Ryan Wolf. Have a great night.